The holographic display flickered in the dimly lit conference room of Unity Prime Station. Ambassador Catherine Moore stood before the Galactic Council, her hands trembling slightly as she presented evidence of the Draxian invasion. Images of displaced families, destroyed homes, and 12 dead colonists rotated slowly in the air above the assembly floor. The colony of New Haven was legally established under Council Charter 7, Catherine said, her voice steady despite the anger burning in her chest. 50,000 human citizens called it home. The Draxian Empire seized it without warning, without negotiation, without justification. Council Prime Zareth lounged in his elevated seat, his reptilian features twisted in what might have been amusement. The massive Draxian leader drummed his clawed fingers against the armrest, making a clicking sound that echoed through the chamber. Ambassador Moore presents her complaint with such passion, Zareth said, his translator converting his hissing speech into standard language. However, the Council must consider the greater good. The resources of New Haven are needed for essential Council projects. Surely humanity understands that junior species must sometimes make sacrifices. Catherine felt her face flush hot. Junior species. They always used that phrase. Humanity had been part of the Galactic Council for 30 years, but the elder races never let them forget their place at the bottom of the hierarchy. 12 people died, Catherine said quietly. Children watched their parents gunned down for refusing to leave their homes. How is that the greater good? Regrettable, Zareth replied with a dismissive wave. But these incidents happen when primitive species resist the inevitable. Perhaps if humans had evacuated peacefully, no one would have died. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Not all the council members joined in, but enough did. Catherine saw the Valon representatives clicking their mandibles in amusement. The Sethic ambassador's tentacles writhed with what their species considered humor. Even some of the smaller species, those who should have understood oppression, remained silent. The council offers compensation, Zareth continued. 5% of the colony's assessed value. This is more than generous for a species with such limited territorial claims. 5%? Catherine's voice rose despite her training. That colony took 15 years to build. Families invested their entire lives there. You're offering pennies and calling it justice. The human ambassador forgets her place, another council member said. Catherine recognized the speaker as Telvan, a Kelvin representative. His species had been part of the council for 800 years and never rose above junior status. He looked at Catherine with something like pity in his multiple eyes. Accept the compensation. To not make this worse, Catherine wanted to scream. She wanted to overturn the podium and demand they see humans as equals. But 30 years of diplomatic training held her tongue. She had seen what happened to species that defied the council too openly. Economic sanctions, trade embargoes, sometimes worse. Earth will consider the council's decision, Catherine said through gritted teeth. She bowed slightly, the gesture tasting like poison, and left the chamber. Halfway across the galaxy, Admiral Daniel Carter stood on the bridge of the Earth fleet ship Vengeance, watching Neptune's blue atmosphere roll beneath them. His fleet had been conducting exercises in the outer system when the emergency transmission came through. He had watched the council proceedings in real time, his jaw clenched tighter with each passing minute. Sir, we're receiving priority communication from Earth Command, his communications officer announced. Put it through. President Amy Richardson's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired. No, not tired. Exhausted in a way that went deeper than missing sleep. Carter had known Amy for 20 years, since they'd both been junior officers fighting to get humanity noticed by the council. He had never seen her look this defeated. Daniel, you watched the council meeting, she said. It wasn't a question. Every second of it, Madam President. Then you know what we're facing. The council has made their position clear. Humans are resources to be managed, not partners to be respected. Carter nodded slowly. Behind him, he sensed his bridge crew listening intently. They all knew what was coming. The question had been building for years. Through every insult, every dismissal. Every time an alien species treated humanity like children playing at civilization. Intelligence suggests 3 more colonies are being targeted, Richardson continued. The Draxians want our mining operations in the outer reach. The Valon Collective is eyeing our agricultural worlds. They're testing us, Daniel. If we accept this, we'll spend the next century as the galaxy's servants. What are you asking me to do, Madam President? Richardson was quiet for a moment. Carter could see the weight of the decision in her eyes. She was about to ask him to do something that could doom humanity or save it. There was no middle ground. I'm asking you to take back what's ours. I'm asking you to show the galaxy that humans won't be pushed around anymore. I'm asking you to prepare for war. The bridge fell completely silent. War with the Council meant war with species that had been spacefaring for thousands of years. It meant facing technology humanity barely understood. It meant risking everything on the belief that humans could compete with civilizations that had written them off as primitives. Carter thought about his daughter. Lisa had been on the colony of Hope Station when the Velcross decided they wanted that system 5 years ago. The Council had authorized the relocation, just like they'd authorized taking New Haven. Lisa had sent him one message before communications were cut off. She had been crying. His daughter, who had inherited his stubborn pride, had been forced from her home by aliens who thought humans didn't matter. He had done nothing then. He had followed orders, accepted Council authority, swallowed his rage because that was what good soldiers did. But 12 more people were dead now, 50,000 more displaced, and 3 more colonies were marked for the taking. With respect, Madam President, Carter said, his voice hard as iron. I don't need to prepare. My fleet is ready now. Give me the order. Richardson smiled grimly. You have 70 ships scattered across 3 systems. How fast can you bring them together? 48 hours to full mobilization. Another 12 to reach New Haven. You understand what this means? Once we move against the Draxians, there's no going back. The Council will call it rebellion. Other species will see it as an attack on the established order. The established order, Carter repeated. The one where humans die and aliens laugh about it? Good. Let that order burn. Captain Ryan Brooks stepped forward from his position at the tactical station. The young officer's face was set with determination. Admiral, the crew wants this. Every ship in the fleet wants this. We've been swallowing insults for 3 decades. Let us show them what humans can do. Carter looked around his bridge. His crew, all of them under 40 years old. All of them born into a galaxy that looked down on their species. They had trained hard, studied alien tactics, prepared for a war everyone said would never come. Now that war was here and they were ready. Madam President, Carter said formally, Earth Fleet requests permission to engage Draxian forces occupying New Haven Colony. We will remove them by force and restore human sovereignty. Permission granted, Admiral. Bring our people home. And Daniel? Make them remember that humans aren't anyone's servants. The transmission ended. Carter turned to his crew, seeing the same fire in their eyes that burned in his chest. They had been patient. They had been peaceful. They had tried to earn respect through cooperation and diplomacy. That time was over. Send the signal, Carter ordered. All human vessels rally Point Delta. Radio silence until we jump. And prepare a message for the Draxian commander at New Haven. What should it say, sir? His communications officer asked. Carter smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Tell them they have 12 hours to evacuate the colony and return it to human control. After that, we're coming in, and we won't be asking twice. As the Vengeance turned toward the rally point, its engines glowing bright in the darkness of space, Carter felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the hope that aliens would finally treat humanity fairly. The hope that humanity would take their respect by force. The galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson. Push humans too far and they push back. The emergency cabinet meeting took place in a bunker deep beneath Geneva. President Amy Richardson sat at the head of a long table surrounded by military commanders, intelligence directors, and her closest advisors. The room smelled of recycled air and coffee that had been sitting too long. Outside, the world waited for answers, but in here, the fate of humanity hung on decisions made in whispered conversations. Intelligence confirms the pattern, Director Paul Martinez said, projecting data onto the wall screen. 3 additional colonies have been surveilled by Council species in the last month. The Valon Collective has ships near Harvest. The Sethic Accord is mapping New Dallas. The Pelkarn Union is conducting scans of Liberty Station. They're picking targets, Admiral Daniel Carter said from his position via holographic link. His image flickered slightly, transmitted from his flagship somewhere beyond Neptune. Testing which colonies have the weakest defenses, which ones we might surrender without a fight. If we fight, we're starting a war with the entire Council, Secretary of Defense Helen Torres said. She looked exhausted, her gray hair pulled back severely. Not just the Draxians, Every elder species will see this as rebellion. With respect, Madam Secretary, the war already started, Carter replied. We just haven't admitted it yet. They've been waging economic warfare against us for years, restricting our trade routes, denying us access to advanced technology, and now they're taking our worlds. The only question is whether we fight back or accept subjugation. President Richardson rubbed her temples. She hadn't slept in 2 days. The weight of 50 billion human lives pressed down on her shoulders. Every choice led to catastrophe. Accept the Council's authority and condemn humanity to permanent inferiority. Fight back and risk annihilation. Give me options, she said quietly. We have 70 warships, Carter said. 17 carriers, 23 cruisers, 30 destroyers. Against the full Council fleet, we're outnumbered 50-1. But we don't need to fight the whole Council. We need to hurt them badly enough that they think twice before pushing us again. And you believe we can do that? Carter's expression hardened. Madam President, I've spent 30 years studying alien tactics. They're predictable. They follow doctrine that's centuries old. They rely on technology to compensate for lack of innovation. Humans have something they don't. We adapt. We improvise. We fight dirty when we need to. Lieutenant Sophie Grant appeared beside Carter in the holographic projection. The young tactical officer looked nervous, addressing the President directly, but her voice was steady. We've run simulations, Madam President. In a direct engagement with Draxian forces at New Haven, we have an 82% probability of victory. Their fleet there is a garrison force, not a main battle group. They weren't expecting resistance. 82%, Richardson repeated. What about casualties? Estimated 400 to 600 human deaths, Sophie said quietly. Maybe 3,000 wounded. The Draxian losses would be total. They don't retreat from battles they think they should win. 3,000 families destroyed. 600 funerals. The President felt sick thinking about it. But then she thought about the alternative. 50,000 colonists displaced from New Haven. 12 already dead. 3 more colonies waiting to be seized. How many deaths would submission cost in the long run? What happens after we win? She asked. The Council will retaliate. Let them try, a new voice said. Captain Ryan Brooks joined the holographic conference from his ship. The young officer's face was flushed with barely contained anger. Madam President, I've served on 4 different stations in Council space. I've watched alien species treat humans like we're too stupid to understand complex ideas. They laugh at us. They mock our culture, our history, our achievements, and we take it because we're afraid. Fear keeps species alive, Captain, Secretary Torres said coldly. Fear also keeps them on their knees. Brooks shot back. My crew is ready to fight. Every human ship in the fleet is ready. We've been training for this our whole careers. Give us the chance to prove that humans deserve respect. Richardson looked around the table at her advisors. Some looked terrified. Others looked determined. All of them were waiting for her to make the choice that would define humanity's future. Director Martinez, what's the intelligence on Council Unity? She asked. The intelligence director pulled up another display. Fractured. The Council hasn't been truly unified in a century. The Draxians have been aggressive for years and several species resent it. The Kelvin Union has been sending us coded messages suggesting they would welcome a challenge to Council authority. 3 other junior species have made similar contacts. So we might have allies, maybe if we prove we're worth the risk. But nobody will stand with us if we look weak. Richardson stood and walked to the window. Even buried deep underground, she could see a screen showing the sky above. Stars twinkled in the darkness, each one potentially harboring species that looked down on humanity. For 30 years, Earth had played by the Council's rules. They had been peaceful, cooperative, patient, and it had gotten them nothing but contempt. Admiral Carter, if I give you authorization to retake New Haven, what's your strategy? Carter's image leaned forward. We hit them fast and hard. 70 ships jump in simultaneously. The Draxian garrison has maybe 20 vessels. We overwhelm them before they can call for reinforcements. We broadcast the battle on all Council frequencies. Let every species see that humans fight back. You want to make an example of them. I want to make a statement that humanity isn't prey anymore. The President turned back to her advisors. This is the moment we've been dreading for 3 decades. The moment when peace ends and everything changes. I want to be clear about what I'm considering. We're not just talking about one battle. We're talking about declaring that Earth will no longer submit to Council authority on matters of our own sovereignty. That's secession. Torres said. That's rebellion. That's independence, Richardson corrected. The council treats us like children. I'm proposing we stand up and declare ourselves equals. Yes, it means war. Yes, people will die. But the alternative is watching our colonies picked off one by one until we have nothing left but Earth itself. She looked at each person in the room. I need to know if you're with me. This isn't an order. This is a choice. If we do this, we all carry the responsibility. One by one, her advisors nodded. Some quickly, some reluctantly, but all of them nodded. Admiral Carter, you have authorization to mobilize Earth Fleet, Richardson said formally. Your orders are to remove Draxian forces from New Haven by any means necessary. Rules of engagement are weapons-free the moment they refuse to withdraw. Understood, Madam President. We won't let you down. One more thing, Daniel. Make it count. If we're going to start a war, make sure the galaxy remembers why. After the meeting ended, Richardson remained in the bunker. Her chief of staff, Marcus Cole, approached quietly. You know there's no going back from this, he said. I know. Some will call you a warmonger. They'll say you destroyed humanity's place in the galactic community. Maybe, Richardson agreed. Or maybe I saved us from slow extinction. Humans didn't crawl out of caves and reach for the stars just to bow before aliens who think we're inferior. She pulled up a video file on her personal tablet. Images from New Haven showed colonists being forced from their homes at gunpoint. She saw a young girl, maybe 6 years old, crying as Draxian soldiers dragged her mother away. The video had been sent to every major news network on Earth. Public anger was reaching a boiling point. They made this choice, not us, Richardson said quietly. They pushed until we had nowhere left to retreat. Now they're going to learn what happens when humans decide they've had enough. Across the solar system, 70 human warships broke from their patrol routes and set course for Rally Point Delta. Crews worked frantically to prepare weapons, check systems, and load ammunition. Word spread through the fleet like wildfire. Finally, after decades of swallowing insults, they were going to fight back. On the Vengeance, Admiral Carter stood before his senior staff. In 48 hours, we jump to New Haven. The Draxians will have one chance to withdraw peacefully. If they refuse, we remove them by force. This is what we've trained for. This is what every exercise, every drill, every simulation has been preparing us to do. Show the galaxy what humans can do when we're done being nice, Ryan Brooks said. Carter nodded. Exactly. For 30 years, we've been the junior species. The primitives. The newcomers who should be grateful for whatever scraps the Council throws us. That ends now. Win or lose after this battle, no species will ever dismiss humanity again. In her quarters, Sophie Grant ran final calculations on her tactical plan. The numbers were solid. The strategy sound. But numbers didn't account for the fear clenching her stomach. This wasn't a simulation. Real people would die. The decisions she made would matter. She thought about her brother living on Harvest Colony with his young family. If humanity didn't stand up now, his home would be next. Then another colony. Then another. Until humans had nothing left. Sophie saved her tactical plan and transmitted it to the fleet. The die was cast. Earth was going to war. And the galaxy was about to discover that humans, when pushed hard enough, pushed back harder. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. 70 warships materialized simultaneously at the edge of the New Haven system. Their arrival precisely coordinated down to the millisecond. Admiral Daniel Carter watched from the bridge of the Vengeance as the tactical display populated with friendly contacts. Every ship had made the jump. Every captain was exactly where they needed to be. All vessels report ready status, his communications officer announced. The fleet is at your command, Admiral. Carter allowed himself a small smile. 60 hours ago, these ships had been scattered across 3 systems. Now they hung in space like a steel wall between the Draxians and everything they had stolen. The elder species always assumed humans were disorganized, too young to coordinate complex operations. That assumption was about to cost them dearly. Begin system scan, Carter ordered. I want to know exactly what we're facing. Sophie Grant's fingers danced across her tactical console. Data streamed in from dozens of sources, building a comprehensive picture of the New Haven system. Draxian fleet composition confirming previous intelligence, sir. 19 warships total. 1 heavy cruiser, 8 medium cruisers, 10 destroyers. Standard occupation formation spread across the inner system. They're not worried, Captain Ryan Brooks observed from his position on the carrier's secondary bridge. Look at that spacing. They think they're on a peacekeeping mission. Carter studied the display. Brooks was right. The Draxian ships were positioned to intimidate the colonists below, not to defend against attack. Their heavy cruiser sat in high orbit over New Haven's main continent, close enough to threaten the surface but vulnerable to coordinated assault. The other ships were scattered, each one covering a different settlement or resource site. Tactical assessment, Lieutenant Grant. Sophie pulled up her analysis. They're following Draxian Doctrine 7, Standard Occupation Protocol.
Maximum visibility, minimum efficiency.
If they tried to consolidate now, we'd catch them mid-maneuver. They're overconfident and exposed. Good. Open a channel to their flagship. The view screen flickered, showing the bridge of the Draxian heavy cruiser. Commander Velcross sat in his command chair, his reptilian features arranged in what Carter had learned to recognize as contempt. Behind him, Draxian officers moved with the lazy efficiency of soldiers who expected no resistance. Admiral Carter, Velcross said, his translator rendering his hissing speech. This is unexpected. Has Earth come to beg for more favorable terms? The Council might be willing to increase compensation to 7% if you ask nicely. Carter kept his expression neutral. I'm here to deliver a message, Commander. You have 30 minutes to evacuate New Haven and withdraw your fleet beyond the system boundary. This is your only warning. Velcross blinked slowly, then made a sound that the translator interpreted as laughter. You come here with your primitive fleet and issue demands? Humans truly are as foolish as the Council believes. This colony belongs to the Draxian Empire now. It was granted to us by proper authority. You have no claim here. We have every claim. Those are human colonists you're occupying. Human homes you're squatting in. Human resources you're stealing. Strong words from a species barely capable of interstellar travel. Velcross replied. I will give you a warning in return, human. Leave now, or I will be forced to disable your ships and tow them back to Earth as a lesson. The Council does not tolerate rebellion. Carter felt the familiar burn of anger in his chest. 30 years of this. 30 years of being talked down to like children. He thought about the 12 dead colonists. The 50,000 displaced. The girl crying in the video as soldiers took her mother away. All of it justified by aliens who thought humans were too primitive to matter. Commander Velcross, I'm going to make you a promise. Carter said quietly. In 1 hour, you're going to wish you had taken my offer. 30 minutes starts now. He cut the transmission before the Draxian could respond. Did he buy it? Brooks asked. Not a chance. He thinks we're posturing. That's what we want. Carter turned to his fleet coordinator. Execute Formation Baker 7. All ships to attack positions. Tell the captains to keep it slow and obvious. Let them think we're trying to look intimidating. The human fleet began to move, spreading out in a formation that looked aggressive but was actually designed to appear clumsy. Carter watched the Draxian response on his tactical display. Just as predicted, Velcross was pulling his scattered ships together, consolidating his forces into a defensive formation. They're doing exactly what we expected, Sophie said, her voice tight with concentration. Textbook Draxian defensive doctrine. They're forming a wall between us and the planet. Of course they are. It's what their training tells them to do. Carter checked the chronometer. 23 minutes until his deadline expired. Captain Brooks, a status on the reserve group? Hidden behind the moon, running silent. The Draxians have no idea we have another 16 ships waiting. Sophie, are the defense platforms in position? Affirmative, sir. 6 platforms concealed in the asteroid belt powered down. They're waiting for your signal. Everything was coming together exactly as planned. The Draxians thought they faced 70 human ships. They didn't know about the reserve force. They didn't know about the automated defense platforms that human engineers had been secretly placing over the past week. They thought this was going to be a simple show of force easily dismissed. They were about to learn otherwise. The minutes ticked down. Carter watched the Draxian fleet complete its formation. 19 ships arranged in overlapping defensive positions, shields up, weapons hot. It was a strong defensive stance that would be difficult to break through direct assault. Too bad that wasn't the plan. 5 minutes to deadline, the communications officer announced. Sir, we're receiving transmission from the colony surface, Sophie said. It's the colonists, Carter nodded. He had expected this. Put it through. A young woman's face appeared on a secondary screen. She stood in what looked like a school gymnasium packed with frightened people. Admiral Carter, this is Colony Administrator Janet Lee. Please don't do this. The Draxians say they'll shell the settlements if you attack. We have children here. Families. We don't want to be the reason for a war. Carter's chest tightened. This was the cruelty of occupation. Using human compassion as a weapon, making the victims beg for their own subjugation. Administrator Lee, I understand your fear, but I need you to trust me. In a few hours, you'll be free. Keep your people away from windows and in sheltered locations. This will be over soon. But Admiral, trust me, Carter repeated, then closed the channel. Brooks stepped closer to Carter's command chair. She's right to be scared. If we fail, the Draxians will take it out on the colonists. Then we don't fail, Carter said simply. The final seconds counted down. Carter took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every decision he'd made to get here. Every calculation, every risk, every assumption about alien psychology and tactics. If he was wrong, thousands would die. If he was right, humanity would take a step toward freedom. 30 minutes are up, the communications officer announced. Carter opened the channel to all ships in the fleet. All vessels, this is Admiral Carter. The Draxians have rejected our terms. As of this moment, Earth fleet is at war. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Show them what happens when you push humans too far. He turned to his tactical officer. Lieutenant Grant, execute Operation Thunder Rising. All weapons fire at will. The human fleet erupted into action. 70 ships surged forward, but not in the clumsy assault the Draxians expected. The fleet split into 3 precisely coordinated attack groups, each one targeting specific weaknesses in the Draxian formation. Railguns firing, Sophie announced. First salvo away. The Draxians had shields designed to stop energy weapons, the standard armament for most Council species. Human railguns fired solid projectiles at a fraction of light speed. The Draxian shields, optimized for the wrong threat, failed to stop the kinetic impacts. 3 Draxian destroyers exploded in the first volley. Direct hits on targets Alpha, Charlie, and Echo, Sophie reported, her voice steady despite the chaos. Enemy formation disrupting. Carter watched the tactical display as confusion rippled through the Draxian fleet. They hadn't expected that. Their shields should have held. Their formation should have been impenetrable. But humans fought differently. Humans didn't follow the rules. Reserve group, execute, Carter commanded. Behind New Haven's moon, 16 more human ships dropped their stealth protocols and accelerated into the battle. The Draxians, already reeling from the initial assault, suddenly found themselves facing attack from 2 directions. Defense platforms activating, Sophie said. Firing solutions locked. 6 automated weapons platforms emerged from the asteroid belt and opened fire on the Draxian heavy cruiser. Velcross's flagship, caught by surprise and taking fire from 3 sides, staggered under the assault. On the view screen, Carter could see explosions blooming across the Draxian formation. Ships that had existed for seconds ago were now debris fields. The perfect defensive wall was shattering like glass. They're trying to retreat, Brooks reported. 4 ships breaking formation, attempting to reach hyperspace distance. Don't let them, Carter ordered. I want every Draxian ship either. News of the Battle of New Haven reached Unity Prime in less than 3 hours. Ambassador Catherine Moore sat in her office, watching the footage that human ships had broadcast on all Council frequencies. The images were brutal and clear. Draxian vessels exploding, their perfect formation shattered, their heavy cruiser burning in space, and through it all, human ships moving with precision that made the attack look almost effortless. Her communication console hadn't stopped flashing with incoming messages. Every Council species wanted to know what was happening. Some demanded explanations. Others asked if this was the start of a wider conflict. A few, she noticed, asked how humanity had won so decisively. The summons to appear before the full Council came within the hour. Catherine stood before the assembled representatives, feeling hundreds of alien eyes fixed on her. The chamber buzzed with angry voices, confused questions, fearful speculation. Council Prime Zareth sat in his elevated position, his reptilian features twisted with rage. The human ambassador will explain this unprovoked attack, Zareth hissed, his voice amplified across the chamber. Earth fleet has destroyed 19 Draxian vessels in an act of blatant aggression. This is a violation of Council law. This is rebellion. Catherine took a deep breath. She had prepared for this moment, rehearsed her words, but standing here felt different than she'd imagined. This wasn't just a speech. This was a declaration that would change everything. Unprovoked, she said, her voice cutting through the noise. You invaded our colony. You killed our citizens. You displaced 50,000 humans from their homes. When we protested, you laughed. When we asked for justice, you offered us 5% compensation and called it generous. The council authorized the relocation, Zareth shot back. Proper procedures were followed. The Draxian Empire had legal claim to those resources under council charter. Legal? Catherine's voice rose. You write the laws, enforce the laws, and judge who breaks the laws. How convenient that your laws always benefit elder species at the expense of younger ones. How convenient that humans are always expected to sacrifice while you take whatever you want. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Kelvin representative, Telvan, leaned forward in his seat. Other junior species delegates watched Catherine with expressions that ranged from fear to hope. The human speaks out of turn, a Valon representative said. She forgets the respect due to this council. Respect? Catherine laughed, and the sound was bitter. We've shown respect for 30 years. We followed your rules, obeyed your laws, accepted your judgment even when it was unjust. And what did it get us? You treated us like servants, like children, like resources to be exploited when convenient. She pulled up the footage of New Haven colonists being forced from their homes at gunpoint. The images played on every screen in the chamber. A young girl crying. A man shot for refusing to leave. Families torn apart. This is what your respect looks like, Catherine said quietly. These are the people you called regrettable casualties. Well, we're done being casualties. We're done asking permission to exist as equals. From this moment forward, Earth recognizes no council authority over human territory or human citizens. The chamber erupted. Voices shouted in a dozen languages. Representatives stood and argued with each other. Zareth pounded his gavel repeatedly, trying to restore order. This is treason, the Council Prime roared. This is a declaration of war against the entire Galactic Council. No, Catherine said firmly. This is a declaration of independence. You can accept it peacefully, or you can try to force us back into submission, but either way, humanity is done bowing. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of species that had looked down on humanity for decades. The Battle of New Haven proved something important. You're not invincible. Your technology isn't so advanced that we can't compete. Your tactics aren't so perfect that we can't counter them. You've grown comfortable being unchallenged for centuries. That comfort made you weak. The human fleet is 70 ships, Zareth said coldly. The combined council fleet numbers over 4,000. You cannot win this conflict, maybe not, but we'll make you pay for every inch. And while you're fighting us, ask yourself something. How many other junior species are watching this? How many of them are tired of being exploited? How many are wondering if they should follow our example? Catherine saw Telvan nod slightly. The Kelvin representative quickly looked away, but she'd seen it. Fear flickered across Zareth's features. The Council's power rested on the assumption that rebellion was impossible, that superior technology and numbers guaranteed control. Catherine had just shattered that assumption in front of every species in the galaxy. Earth withdraws from the Galactic Council effective immediately, Catherine announced formally. We will defend our territory and our citizens from any aggression. We will continue peaceful trade and diplomacy with any species willing to treat us as equals. But we will never again accept second-class status. She turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, chaos reigned. Representatives shouted questions she didn't answer. Zareth called for her arrest, but council security made no move to stop her. They had seen what happened when someone tried to push humans around. Nobody wanted to be the next example. In her shuttle back to Earth's embassy, Catherine's hands trembled. She had just committed humanity to a path that could lead to destruction, but looking at her reflection in the shuttle window, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Pride. Across the galaxy, the footage of the battle played on every news network. Species that had never heard of Earth suddenly knew the name. Military analysts studied the tactics, trying to understand how such a young species had defeated a council fleet so completely. On the Draxian homeworld, riots erupted. Citizens demanded to know how their military had suffered such humiliation. Council Prime Zareth faced calls for his removal, accused of leading the Draxian Empire into an unwinnable conflict through arrogance and miscalculation. In the Kelvin Union, Telvan called a secret meeting of his government's military council. He played the battle footage 3 times, watching how human ships moved, how they coordinated, how they exploited weaknesses that Kelvin commanders had seen in Draxian tactics for centuries, but never dared to use. We have been part of the Council for 800 years, Telvin said to his fellow commanders. In all that time, we have accepted that we are junior species. We have watched elder races take what they want from us and called it cooperation. The humans have been in space for barely 2 centuries, and they refuse to accept what we have tolerated for nearly a millennium. Are you suggesting we follow their example? One commander asked carefully. I am suggesting we watch what happens next very closely. If humanity can stand against the Council and survive, perhaps we can too. Similar conversations were happening on a dozen worlds. Species that had accepted their inferior position for centuries suddenly questioned that acceptance. The Council's power structure, stable for longer than human civilization had existed, began to crack. In the New Haven system, human ships took positions around the liberated colony. Admiral Carter stood on the surface for the first time, meeting with Colony Administrator Janet Lee. Thank you, she said simply. We thought we'd never see our homes again. We don't leave our people behind, Carter replied. Not anymore. He looked up at the stars where his fleet maintained watch. Somewhere out there, the Council was deciding how to respond. Would they accept Earth's independence? Or would they send fleets to punish human defiance? Carter didn't know, but he knew one thing with certainty. Humanity had crossed a line. There was no going back. They had declared themselves equals through force of arms, and now they had to prove they could maintain that claim. More battles were coming, harder battles against better-prepared enemies. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Today, 50,000 colonists were free. Today, the galaxy knew that humans couldn't be pushed around. Today, Earth stood as a sovereign power answerable to no one. Carter's communicator chirped. Captain Ryan Brooks's voice came through. Admiral, we're detecting hyperspace signatures at the system boundary. Multiple contacts jumping in. How many? 20 ships so far. Wait, more coming through. 40. 60. Sir, we're reading over 100 vessels incoming. Carter's blood ran cold. The Council response was here, and it was massive. He looked at the colonists celebrating their freedom around him, unaware that another battle was about to begin. Sound general quarters, Carter ordered. All ships to defensive positions. This isn't over yet. The celebration stopped as warning sirens filled the air. Colonists looked up at the sky with fear returning to their eyes. They had been free for less than a day, and already the Council was coming to take it away again. But Carter had no intention of letting that happen. Humanity had declared war on alien arrogance. Now they had to win it. One battle at a time, against impossible odds, with nothing but determination and the refusal to quit. The first battle was won. The war had just begun, and somewhere in the depths of space, hundreds of warships were converging on human territory. Ready to teach Earth a lesson about defying the established order, the galaxy was about to discover just how hard it was to teach humans anything they didn't want to learn. The encrypted message reached Earth's intelligence headquarters at 0300 hours. Director Paul Martinez was already awake when it arrived, having not slept since the Battle of New Haven 3 days ago. He read the message twice, then immediately called President Richardson. Madam President, we have a situation. The Kelvin Union has made contact through back channels. They want to meet. President Amy Richardson sat up in bed, her tablet displaying casualty reports from New Haven. 417 human dead, just as predicted. Each name was a weight on her conscience. What do they want? They're asking for military advisors. They want to learn human tactics. Martinez paused. Madam President, they're not the only ones. We've received similar inquiries from 3 other junior species. The Pelkarn Union, the Sethic Fringe Worlds, and the Vertok Collective. They all saw what we did. Richardson processed this information. They're thinking about rebellion. More than thinking. The Kelvin have already restricted Draxian access to their territory. It's a small move, but significant. They're testing boundaries for the first time in centuries. This could change everything. If other species join us, the Council loses its unified front. Richardson stood and moved to her window, looking out at Geneva's lights. But it also means we've started something we can't control. How many species will die because we showed them it was possible to fight back? How many were dying slowly under Council oppression? Martinez countered. Madam President, we kicked over an anthill. But that anthill was built on the backs of dozens of species who had no choice. Maybe it needed to be kicked over. 2 hours later, Richardson sat in a secure conference room with Admiral Carter, Ambassador Moore, and her senior staff. The holographic display showed intelligence reports flooding in from across Council space. "It's spreading faster than we anticipated," Martinez briefed. "News of New Haven has reached every corner of the galaxy." The official Council statement called it an unfortunate incident, but their internal communications tell a different story. "They're panicking. Show them," Richardson ordered. The display changed to show intercepted Draxian military communications. Commander Velcross, the defeated officer from New Haven, was being interrogated by his superiors. The recording was damning. "They knew exactly what they were doing," Velcross said in the recording, his translator rendering his distressed hisses. "Their tactics were sophisticated. Their weapons specifically designed to counter our defenses. This was not luck. The humans have been preparing for this." "Preparing?" his interrogator demanded. "For 30 years they've been peaceful. They've shown no signs of military buildup because we weren't looking properly. We assumed they were primitive. We assumed wrong." The recording ended. Admiral Carter leaned back in his chair. "He's right. We've been preparing. Every exercise, every training mission, every simulation was designed around fighting Council forces. We just did it quietly. The problem is what comes next," Ambassador Moore said. "Zareth is calling for a massive military response. He wants to make an example of Earth. 400 warships are being mobilized, the largest fleet action in 2 centuries. 400, Captain Ryan Brooks repeated. He attended the meeting via holographic link from the Vengeance. "We have 70 ships. The math doesn't work in our favor." "The math never works in our favor," Lieutenant Sophie Grant added from her position beside Brooks. "We've always been outnumbered. The question is whether we can make them pay such a high price that victory becomes too expensive." Richardson studied the tactical projections. 400 Council ships converging on human space. The target was obvious. Earth itself. The Council wanted to strike at humanity's heart, to break their will before other species got ideas about rebellion. "Where would they hit us?" Richardson asked. Sophie pulled up a tactical map. "They'll come directly at Earth. It's the only target that makes sense strategically and psychologically. If they can break our homeworld, the rest of humanity will collapse." "Or that's what they think. Can we defend Earth against those numbers?" Admiral Carter stood and walked to the display. "Not in open space, but Earth has advantages they don't. Orbital defense platforms, planetary shields, the entire asteroid belt mined and weaponized, the moon's surface covered with missile batteries. Home ground favors the defender." "You're talking about fighting the battle in our own system," Richardson said. "If we lose, they'll have weapons platforms pointed at Earth. If we run, we've already lost. The Council needs to learn that attacking Earth costs more than they're willing to pay." Carter's expression was grim but determined. "Madam President, we fortified this system for 30 years while the Council thought we were just being paranoid. Let's show them why." The decision was made. Earth would stand and fight. Orders went out across human space. Every warship was recalled to defend the homeworld. Civilians were evacuated from orbital stations to the surface. Defense platforms powered up. Millions of volunteers flooded military recruitment centers. In the Kelvin Union, Telvan watched human preparations through carefully placed observers. His people had survived for 8 centuries by being cautious, by never challenging the established order. But caution had cost them their pride, their resources, their future. He called a meeting with the Kelvin High Council. "The humans are preparing to fight 400 warships with 70, Telvan announced. "The Council expects them to be crushed. They expect this rebellion to end with Earth in ruins." "Then why do we discuss this?" one Council member asked. "The humans chose their fate, because I don't think they're going to lose," Telvan said quietly. "I've studied their tactics. I've analyzed their ships. They're not superior in technology, but they're superior in thinking. They see possibilities we've been trained to ignore." He pulled up footage of the Battle of New Haven again. "Watch how they move. They don't follow standard attack patterns. They coordinate in ways our doctrine says shouldn't work. And it works because they refuse to be limited by what's supposed to be impossible." "What are you proposing?" the senior council member asked. "I'm proposing we stand with them. Publicly. We send our fleet to Earth and offer an alliance. If the humans win, we'll have proven ourselves worthy of freedom. If they lose, we lose with them. But either way, we stop being cowards." The council chamber fell silent. For 800 years, the Kelvin had accepted their place. 800 years of giving ground, accepting insults. Watching younger species like the Draxians rise above them through aggression, while they remained stagnant through caution. "How many ships can we commit?" the senior council member asked. Telvan allowed himself a smile. 40, maybe 50 if we strip our border defenses. The council will destroy us for this. The council is already destroying us, slowly, taking a piece at a time. At least this way we die fighting for something that matters. 3 days later, a Kelvin fleet of 42 ships arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. Admiral Carter received their transmission personally. "Admiral Carter," Telvan said formally, "the Kelvin Union offers alliance with humanity. Our ships and crews are yours to command in the coming battle." Carter felt something loosen in his chest. They weren't alone. "Ambassador Telvan, Earth accepts your alliance. Welcome to the fight for freedom." "We should have done this centuries ago," Telvan replied. "Thank you for showing us it was possible." Within 24 hours, 2 more fleets arrived. The Pelkarn sent 18 ships. The Sethic fringe worlds contributed 23. Suddenly, Earth's defensive fleet numbered 153 vessels. Still outnumbered, but no longer impossibly so. President Richardson addressed the combined fleet via holographic transmission. Thousands of beings from 4 different species watched as she spoke. For too long, the Council has maintained order through fear and superior numbers. They've told junior species that rebellion is impossible, that accepting subjugation is wisdom, that knowing your place is survival. She paused. "We're here to prove them wrong. This battle will be hard. Many of us will die, but we die as free beings, not as servants. We die knowing that we chose to stand rather than kneel, and if we win, we'll have changed the galaxy forever." The speech was broadcast on every channel, including Council frequencies. Across the galaxy, billions watched. Junior species saw hope, elder species saw threat, and everyone understood that something fundamental was about to change. In the Draxian fleet, Commander Talreth reviewed his orders. 400 ships under his command, the largest fleet assembled in 2 centuries. His orders were clear: destroy Earth's military capacity and force humanity back into compliance. Show the galaxy what happens to species that defy the Council. But Talreth had also watched the footage from New Haven. He had seen how human tactics dismantled a Draxian fleet. He was not Velcross. He would not underestimate these primitives. He would come at them with overwhelming force and give them no chance to use their clever tricks. The Council fleet jumped to hyperspace, heading for Earth. 400 warships traveling together, the largest show of force in living memory. They would arrive in 36 hours. And when they did, they would end human rebellion permanently. Or so they thought. On Earth, Sophie Grant stood in the Defense Command Center. The Council fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system in a display designed to terrify. 400 warships materialized simultaneously, their combined mass creating gravitational ripples detectable across the entire system. Commander Talreth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the dreadnought Inexorable Truth, and surveyed his forces with satisfaction. "Deploy the fleet in assault formation Delta," he ordered. "I want every human sensor to see exactly what they're facing. Let them understand the futility of resistance." The massive fleet arranged itself into a wall of steel and energy, dreadnoughts at the center, heavy cruisers on the flanks, destroyers forming a protective screen. It was a formation designed to announce dominance. No clever tactics could overcome such raw power. "Sir, detecting defensive fleet ahead," his sensor officer reported. Approximately 150 vessels. Composition mixed. Human ships, Kelvin, Pelkarn, and Sethic. Talreth's mandibles clicked in surprise. "The humans have allies? Curious. Update tactical assessment. Still outnumbered nearly 3 to 1, sir. Recommend standard advance. Our superior numbers will overwhelm them regardless of tactical innovation." But Talreth was more cautious than Velcross had been. He had studied the Battle of New Haven extensively. The humans had used unconventional tactics, exploited overconfidence, turned assumptions into vulnerabilities. He would not make the same mistake. "Begin advance at 1/4 speed. Keep tight formation. I want overlapping shields and weapons coverage. No gaps. No clever human tricks will penetrate this fleet." On Earth, in the Defense Command Center buried deep beneath Geneva, Sophie Grant watched the Council fleet approach. Her tactical displays showed every ship, every formation change, every predictable move. She allowed herself a small smile. "They're doing exactly what we expected," she said. "Tight formation, slow advance, textbook council doctrine." Admiral Daniel Carter stood beside her, arms crossed. Around them, dozens of officers monitored screens, showing defensive positions throughout the solar system. They learned the wrong lesson from New Haven. They think the problem was being too spread out, so now they're packed tight. "Which makes them a perfect target for what we have planned," Captain Ryan Brooks added from his position on the Vengeance, displayed on the main view screen. "Sir, the fleet is ready. Defense platforms are powered up. We're just waiting on your order." "Not yet," Carter said. "Let them come deeper into the system. Let them commit to the engagement zone. Once they're in the kill box, they'll find it very hard to leave." The Council fleet advanced steadily toward Earth. They passed the orbit of Neptune, then Uranus. Their formation remained perfect, impenetrable. On the inexorable truth, Talrith watched the human defensive fleet holding position near Mars' orbit. "They're not running," his tactical officer observed, "standing to fight." "Of course they are. Earth is behind them. They have nowhere to run." Talrith studied the tactical display. "What are those energy signatures near Jupiter?" "Analyzing now, sir. Detecting multiple orbital platforms. Weapon systems, but configuration unknown." "Unknown?" Talrith frowned. "The humans have been in space for less than 2 centuries. How can they have weapon systems we don't recognize? Perhaps they're improvised, primitive, possibly even non-functional, deployed to make their defenses appear stronger." Talrith wanted to believe that, but his instincts, honed through decades of combat, whispered warnings. The humans had surprised the Council once. What, if they had more surprises waiting? Increase sensor sweeps. "I want to know about every piece of metal larger than a fighter in this system." The Council fleet crossed Jupiter's orbit. They were now fully committed to the inner system. Behind them, 4 more Council fleets maintained position at the system boundary, ready to jump in if needed. Talrith had brought overwhelming force. He would not lose. In the asteroid belt, hidden among millions of rocks, automated defense platforms powered up. They had been placed there over 30 years, disguised as mining equipment or scientific stations. 300 platforms, each one armed with railguns and missile batteries. The Council fleet's sensors had detected some of them, but not all. Not enough. "Sir, we're detecting power surges throughout the asteroid belt," the sensor officer on the Inexorable Truth reported. "Multiple contacts, weapons platforms activating." "How many?" "Still counting. At least 200. "Sir, they've weaponized their entire asteroid belt." Talrith felt his first flutter of real concern. 200 platforms could inflict serious damage before being destroyed. This was more sophisticated than expected. "All ships, shields to maximum. Prepare for platform assault. Destroy any weapon systems within range." The Council fleet opened fire. Energy beams lanced through space, destroying asteroid defense platforms by the dozen. Explosions bloomed among the rocks, but for every platform destroyed, 2 more opened fire. Railgun rounds, invisible until impact, slammed into Council ships. Shields absorbed the initial impacts, but the sheer volume of fire began to take its toll. A destroyer's shields collapsed and the next round punched through its hull. Then another ship fell. Then 3 more. "All ships maintain formation," Talrith ordered, watching his fleet take damage. "Continue advance. We'll clear the platform defenses as we proceed." "Sir, the human fleet is moving," the tactical officer announced. "They're advancing to meet us." On the Vengeance, Ryan Brooks grinned as his carrier group accelerated toward the enemy. 153 ships against 400. Impossible odds. Exactly where humans did their best work. "All ships. Execute attack pattern Grant 7, he commanded. Split into 3 groups. Hit them from multiple angles. Don't give them a clean target." The Allied fleet divided and scattered. Council tactical doctrine expected defensive forces to consolidate, to use defensive positions and try to hold ground. Instead, the human-led fleet fragmented into fast-moving strike groups that attacked from unexpected vectors. Sophie Grant coordinated the chaos from Earth. Beta Group swing wide through Mars orbit. Delta Group use Jupiter's gravity well for acceleration. Alpha Group straight up the middle. Make them think you're the main assault. The Council fleet tried to adjust, but their tight formation made maneuvering difficult. Ships got in each other's way. Weapons coverage overlapped, creating dead zones. And through those dead zones, human ships poured fire. "Sir, we're taking heavy casualties," Talreth's tactical officer reported. 17 ships destroyed, 43 damaged. The enemy is exploiting gaps in our formation. There are no gaps. We planned this formation specifically to prevent... Talreth stopped. The formation was perfect, on paper, in simulations, against enemies who fought according to doctrine. But the humans didn't care about doctrine. They found the gaps that theory said didn't exist. "Reform the fleet," Talreth ordered. "Spread out. Give each ship room to maneuver." But reforming under fire proved costly. Ships moving to new positions exposed vulnerable angles. Human railguns found those angles. More Council vessels died. On Earth's surface, billions watched the battle on screens. They saw their ships, outnumbered nearly 3-1, tearing into the Council fleet. They saw defense platforms erupting from hiding to savage enemy vessels. They saw something impossible happening in the space above their world. They were winning. In the Defense Command Center, Admiral Carter watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. "They're breaking formation. Sophie, activate the lunar batteries." On Earth's moon, weapon systems that had been disguised as research stations came online. Missile batteries hidden in craters opened fire. Thousands of missiles streaked toward the Council fleet from an unexpected direction. "Sir, missile launch. From Earth's moon," the sensor officer on the Inexorable Truth shouted. Multiple launches. Thousands of missiles incoming. Talreth felt his blood run cold. The humans had turned their entire solar system into a weapon. Asteroids, platforms, the moon. What else had they prepared? Point defense, engage missiles. All ships, evasive maneuvers. The Council fleet's point defense systems opened fire, destroying missiles by the hundreds. But there were too many. They came from every direction. And while Council ships focused on the missiles, human warships pressed their attack. The battle raged for hours. The Council fleet's numerical advantage eroded slowly but steadily. They destroyed platforms. They shot down missiles. They even managed to kill some human ships. But for every human vessel destroyed, 3 Council ships fell. Ryan Brooks pushed his carrier group hard into the enemy formation. His flagship took heavy fire, shields buckling, but he kept advancing. "All fighters, launch. Target their command ships. Take out their coordination and they'll fold." Human fighters, small and fast, swarmed through the Council fleet. They were suicide missions, everyone knew it, but the pilots flew anyway. They carried missiles specifically designed to penetrate heavy shields. They aimed for bridges, engine rooms, command centers. The Inexorable Truth shuddered as fighters attacked from 6 directions simultaneously. Talreth gripped his command chair as explosions rocked the ship. "Multiple hull breaches," his damage control officer reported. "Shields at 30%. Sir, we're losing ships faster than acceptable. Recommend withdrawal." Talreth looked at the tactical display. He had started with 400. The wreckage floating in Earth's orbit told the story better than any report could. Twisted metal that had been warships, debris fields that marked where proud vessels had died. 3,000 human dead, 8,000 wounded. But Earth stood unconquered, and the Council fleet had limped away in defeat. Admiral Daniel Carter stood at the observation window of the orbital defense station, looking down at the planet he had sworn to protect. Behind him, Captain Ryan Brooks approached quietly. "The casualty lists are final, sir," Ryan said. 3,047 confirmed dead. Another 8,200 wounded. The Kelvin lost 900. Pelkarn 600. Sethic 412. Carter closed his eyes. Each number was a name, a family. Someone who had believed that freedom was worth dying for. And the Council? Their losses were catastrophic. We estimate 97 ships destroyed outright. Another 120 damaged beyond immediate repair. Over 40,000 casualties. They retreated with less than half the force they brought. "Good," Carter said simply. The word felt hollow. "Victory tasted like ashes when you counted the cost. Sir, you saved humanity. You proved we could stand against the Council." "Did I?" Or did I just guarantee that more people will die in the next battle? Carter turned from the window. The Council won't forgive this, Ryan. They'll come back. With more ships, better tactics, and next time they'll be prepared for everything we used. Then we'll find new tricks, Ryan replied. Sir, with respect, you can't doubt this now. The galaxy watched us win. 50 different species sent ships to help. We started something bigger than one battle. Carter knew Ryan was right. The communications console in his office hadn't stopped flashing with incoming messages. Governments offering alliances. Species requesting military advisors. Junior worlds asking for guidance on declaring independence. Earth had become a symbol overnight. President Amy Richardson's face appeared on the view screen. She looked as exhausted as Carter felt. Daniel, the Council is requesting a ceasefire negotiation. They want to meet at Unity Prime in 72 hours. A trap? Probably. But we have to take the meeting. The galaxy is watching. If we refuse to negotiate, we look like the aggressors. We are the aggressors, Madam President. We started this war. No, Richardson corrected firmly. They started it when they took New Haven, when they killed our people. When they treated us like servants, we just finished it. Or at least we're trying to. Ambassador Catherine Moore joined the transmission from Unity Prime. The Council is in chaos. Zareth has been removed from his position. 3 species have withdrawn from Council membership entirely. The Kelvin Union is openly calling for reform. Daniel, what you did here changed everything. People died, Catherine. A lot of people. People have been dying under Council oppression for centuries, Catherine replied. We just stopped pretending it was peaceful. The question now is what comes next. Do we keep fighting until the Council collapses? Or do we try to build something better? 3 days later, Catherine stood in the Council chambers once again. But this time she wasn't alone. Ambassador Telvan of the Kelvin Union stood beside her. So did representatives from the Pelkarn, the Sethic, and a dozen other species that had sent ships to Earth's defense. The Council chamber looked different now. Half the seats were empty. Species that had withdrawn. Species that had sided with humanity. The remaining Council members looked diminished somehow. Their centuries of authority shaken by a single battle they weren't supposed to lose. The new Council Prime was a Valon named Cassera. She lacked Zareth's arrogance, but her multiple eyes held wariness as she addressed the assembly. Ambassador Moore, you come before this council as a representative of an aggressor state. You have destroyed Council vessels, killed Council personnel, and inspired rebellion across the galaxy. Explain why we should not declare total war against Earth. Catherine stepped forward confidently. Because you already tried that, Prime Cassera. You brought 400 ships to our system. We destroyed or damaged half of them. If you want to try again with 800 ships, we'll be ready. If you want to try with 4,000, we'll rally allies and be ready for that too. You cannot win an extended war against the full Council resources. Maybe not, but we can make it so expensive that you'll wish you'd never started. How many ships are you willing to lose? How many species are you willing to watch leave the Council to join us? Because that's what's happening. Every day you refuse to reform, more junior species question why they need you. Cassera's tentacles writhed with agitation. You speak of reform. What exactly are you demanding? Catherine pulled up a document and projected it for all to see. The Unity Accords, a new framework for the Galactic Council. First, all species have equal representation regardless of age or technological level. Second, territorial claims are inviolable without consent of the governing species. Third, Council decisions require majority vote, not the approval of a few elder species. Impossible, a Draxian representative hissed. This would give primitives equal voice with civilizations thousands of years old. That's exactly the point, Telvan said, speaking for the first time. For 800 years, my people have been junior members of this council. We've contributed resources, followed laws, and accepted decisions that harmed our interests because elder species knew better. But watching humanity fight for freedom made me realize something. Being old doesn't make you wise. It just makes you old. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Other junior species representatives nodded. The careful order the council had maintained for centuries was crumbling. If we accept these terms, we surrender the authority we've held since this council was founded, Cassera said. If you don't accept these terms, you watch the council dissolve as species leave to form their own alliances. Catherine countered. You lost the moment you tried to take New Haven. You just haven't admitted it yet. The debate raged for hours. Elder species argued for maintaining traditional hierarchy. Junior species demanded equality. Independent worlds threatened to form a rival organization. And through it all, Catherine stood firm. Finally, Cassera called for a vote. All those in favor of adopting the Unity Accords as the new framework for council governance. 57 species voted in favor. 23 voted against. The old order fell with a simple majority. The Unity Accords are adopted, Cassera announced, her voice hollow. The council will be reformed according to these principles. All species will have equal representation. Junior species designation is abolished. Catherine allowed herself a small smile. They had won more than a battle. They had won recognition as equals. But as the session ended and representatives filed out, Catherine couldn't shake a feeling of unease. Some species had voted against the reforms, the Draxians, the Valon, a few others who had profited from the old hierarchy. They would accept this outcome publicly, but privately, she found Telvan waiting for her in the corridor outside. Congratulations, Ambassador Moore. You've achieved what my people couldn't in 8 centuries. You've made the council treat us as equals. We did it together, Catherine replied. Your ships at Earth made the difference, perhaps, but humanity showed us it was possible. Telvan's multiple eyes showed concern. However, I must warn you, the species that voted against the reforms will not forgive this. They will look for ways,